few weeks ago we talked about my favorite books, and I'm thinking we should also talk about my favorite movies. Movies are arguably my favorite thing in the world. They mean even more to me than books, and my life quite honestly revolves around movies. I work in the entertainment industry. I moved to LA because of it, and it is just such a core pillar of my personality, something I love to share with my family and friends, but also something that I love to enjoy and study and dig into on my own. And much like my favorite books, I think my favorite movies can also be separated into tiers. Tier 1 would be my all-time favorites. Tier 2 being, you know, they're not in my letterbox top 4, but they're still ones that I would rattle off in a conversation, ones that I would suggest to people freely. And then tier 3 would be movies probably that I would say aren't objectively good, maybe, not all the time, but ones that I feel a personal attachment to. I think there are also different categories of movies that I don't think I'll do in this one. I have like my favorite kids movies or animated films. I also have a category that I've always called my why films, and it's why I decided that I wanted to work in film and when I really started feeling passion for studying movies, and that's like its own separate category as well. Today I want to start with my tier 1 films, which are also the 4 films featured on my letterbox. I'm just gonna pretend in my head that I'm on a red carpet somewhere being asked this question. So first and foremost, Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is my #1 favorite forever and always. It first premiered at Sundance in 2015. It stars Thomas Mann, love of my life, Olivia Cooke, RJ Cyler, Connie Britton, Nick Offerman, Molly Shannon, John Bernthal, and it's based on a YA book. Me and Earl and the Dying Girl is about a socially awkward teenager whose mom asks him to start hanging out with a girl at school who has just found out that she has leukemia. He obliges and in spite of himself begins to get very close to her. He also on the side makes parody films of classic cinema with his best friend Earl, and the rest of it in general is just about the waves of teenage angst and confusion and finding out who you are. The plot of this film feels very mid-2010s. It's very similar to The Fault in Our Stars or something like that, but what makes the movie so very special is the way it's made. It is so entirely creative. I've never seen anything like it before. The film was very clearly made by cinephiles and people that love movies. The characters are unique and quirked and flawed and very real. It is quotable, it's beautiful, it's got amazing needle drop moments, and it leaves you with this nauseatingly beautiful, bittersweet feeling, which is my absolute favorite feeling in the world, and I will chase that in movies and books and TV shows and music all day, every day for the rest of my life. If you haven't seen Me and Earl, I highly recommend it. And this goes without saying for all of my favorites. It may not be for everyone, but it's for me. It is mine. The second film of my 4 favorites is Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. This came out in 2004 and stars, you know, just Jim Carrey, Kate Winslet, Kirsten Dunst, Mark Ruffalo, Elijah Wood, Tom Wilkinson. This movie chases that bittersweet feeling and, in my opinion, is the most intelligent, interesting, creative screenplay that has ever been written. Eternal Sunshine follows Jim Carrey as he finds out that his ex-girlfriend, played by Kate Winslet, has gone through a procedure in which she has erased him from her memory. Eventually, he decides to do the same, and in a world where this procedure is possible, it leaves him chasing after the stain of something that he's not quite sure what used to be there, but he knows that there's something that he's missing in his life. And this movie continues to follow both of them and other people who have had the procedure as it unravels their lives and their psyche. This won the best original screenplay at the Oscars, but I don't think that even does it justice. I truly just this is just the best original screenplay that has ever been written. My third favorite is Almost Famous, which came out in 2000. and again has a long list of stars. Patrick Fugit, Billy Crudup, Kate Hudson, Frances McDormand, Jason Lee, Zooey Deschanel, Anna Paquin, Fairuza Balk, Philip Seymour Hoffman, and even Jimmy Fallon. Almost Famous is directed by Cameron Crowe and is based on the true story of young Cameron Crowe as he decided that he wanted to be a music journalist. It's set in the 70s and is about young Patrick Fugit following after these bands, learning about them, falling in love with them, trying to find his place in all of it, and also trying to find his place as an impartial music journalist in all of it. It has an amazing soundtrack, which you can always count on from Cameron Crowe, and is also one of the most important things to me in a film. It also has like one of the best songs for like a fake band in a movie ever. Maybe only beaten by the original song from Scott Pilgrim.
Hello again, friend of a friend, I knew you were.
But this movie is beautiful. I've shown it to so many friends, and I will forever maintain that it is the best movie to suggest to other people, because I've never met one person who didn't enjoy their time watching it. The fourth of my four favorites has changed a little bit through time. I wouldn't say necessarily because I've decided I liked one thing more than the other. It's just the one that is a little more of a revolving door. But right now I have Baz Luhrmann's 1996 Romeo and Juliet, which stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Claire Danes amongst an amazing supporting cast. We all know the story of Romeo and Juliet, but what I think makes this particular adaptation so important was that Baz Luhrmann wanted to make the words of William Shakespeare accessible to everyone. So in the film, it's set in modern day, but he still uses William Shakespeare's original words. On top of it, I just love Baz Luhrmann's style. I think that the over-the-top, the party sequence, the intro, which is my favorite part of the whole movie, quite honestly, is all beautiful and crucial to the story. And needless to say, we also get beautiful Leonardo DiCaprio out of it, and something that I truly think is one of his top 5 performances. Okay, my tier 2 films, which can be found on my favorites list on Letterboxd, starts with 500 Days of Summer, which came out in 2009 and is headed by Joseph Gordon-Levitt and Zooey Deschanel. 500 Days of Summer is truly just a case study, basically, of a hopeless romantic falling in love with someone who may or may not be meant for them, and the ups and downs of accepting reality over your expectations that you had for yourself. And I started saying you because I at times feel very personally attacked by this movie. The really beautiful thing about it though lies in its soundtrack and its chemistry between its two leads and its editing. The story isn't told chronologically and really helps get you in the mindset of someone that is constantly filing back through memories and trying to figure out what happened in a relationship. It's also set in downtown Los Angeles, which is my favorite place in the world. And I absolutely love being able to pick out all of the spots that I love to go to in real life. Next is Little Miss Sunshine, which came out in 2006 and stars Greg Kinnear, Toni Collette, Steve Carell, Alan Arkin, Abigail Breslin, and a very young Paul Dano. Little Miss Sunshine has like the most mundane plot. It's about this just literally your most average family you could possibly find, and the young girl of that family that decides that she wants to enter into a beauty competition and their road trip there. There are a lot of great things about Little Miss Sunshine. All the acting in it is phenomenal, but it is mainly just about the feeling that it gives you. It encapsulates that bitter, sweet, melancholy bliss that I absolutely love. And it's truly just about life as an average family in this kind of weird circumstance that they got themselves into. And this is another one that I think that anybody could like if they watched it. Also starring Paul Dano is Ruby Sparks, which came out in 2012. And it co-stars him and Zoe Kazan, who wrote the screenplay for this movie. After Eternal Sunshine, this is the movie that I think has the most brilliant screenplay in the world. It truly is my number one on my I wish that I could have written it movies. Zoe Kazan is truly just a blessing to society. Ruby Sparks is about Paul Dano's character Calvin, who's a young writer in Los Angeles. and he starts having these dreams about his dream woman, basically, and he starts writing about her when he wakes up. And then he eventually finds that he basically conjures her, this dream woman who he's never met before, in real life, who's played by Zoe Kazan, and that he can continue to manipulate her quirks and her feelings by writing about her. I love this movie because it doesn't get bogged down in the science of, or the magic of like, is it the typewriter that's magic? Does Calvin have something weird going on with him? Is it psychological? It's all truly taken as this is happening in real life and we don't know why. And I love that. And of course, Paul Dano and Zoe Kazan are now together and have a child and everything. And so their chemistry is perfect. I love both of them so very much. And this movie, no matter how many times I watch it, does not lose its magic, does not lose its sparkle. It's so interesting, and I think there's so much to study in it. Released in 2013 is The Spectacular Now, which was also based on a YA book that is framed by the narrator writing a college admissions piece, which seems to be a thing that I have a thing for. It stars Miles Teller and Shailene Woodley, as well as a young Brie Larson, Kyle Chandler, Jennifer Jason Leigh, Mary Elizabeth Winstead, Bob Odenkirk. Miles Teller's character Sutter, who is the life of the party. He has a devil may care personality, and his biggest mantra in life is to live in the now, which has kept him from preparing for a future. He meets Amy, who's played by Shailene Woodley, and she's like awkward, super quiet, really intelligent, and they're both attracted to each other, which everyone around them has a hard time swallowing. And they fall in love even though the timing of graduating and moving to college is looming over them. The movie is really about Miles waking up and growing up and deciding that he needs to make some changes in his life in order to kind of escape the generational trauma that he learns about from his parents. It's a beautiful movie, and I have a very deep personal connection to this film, and for that reason alone and many, many others, it will always be one of my favorites. My next favorite is Midnight in Paris, which came out in 2011. This is a film by Woody Allen, unfortunately, but it is a beautiful magical film centered around Owen Wilson, who is traveling in Paris with his fiancée, Rachel McAdams, and discovers that he can time travel. He goes back in time to the 1920s when he truly believes life was better, books were better, wine was better, and Paris was at its most magical. And he begins to meet all of these icons of that time, most notably Ernest Hemingway and F. Scott Fitzgerald. But he also meets Pablo Picasso and Gertrude Stein, and he continues on this path of learning about golden age thinking, and is slowly being taught by others around him that maybe it's not in everyone's best interest to claim that you should have been born in another time. I am Owen Wilson's character, and he is I. I love learning about the 20s. I am convinced that F. Scott and I would have fallen deeply in love, and I think the whole Lost Generation is just absolutely fascinating. It is quite unfortunate that Woody Allen also had these interests, but I do love watching movies about it, and I don't think anyone has ever done it better. A fun one, 10 Things I Hate About You, was released in 1999. It stars Julia Stiles, Joseph Gordon-Levitt, and most notably the angel himself, Heath Ledger. This is just a fun one. It's a modern high school retelling of The Taming of the Shrew. It's a movie that will always, always, always make me feel better. This is a movie to watch on a down day. Heath Ledger has the most charisma I think that has ever existed in this movie, and he's gorgeous, and I just want to melt into Patrick Barona's arms. It's such a fun millennium snapshot, another great soundtrack, and oh so very quotable. Kicking and Screaming by Noah Baumbach in 1995 I think is the most recent addition to this list. It's just about a group of kids post-college, particularly a couple of boys that are extremely pretentious and immediately began romanticizing their lives in college that they loved. A true 90s cast with Josh Hamilton, Parker Posey, Chris Eigelman, Cara Buono, Elliot Gould, Eric Stoltz, and it's just a talk movie. There's not a lot of plot, it's just them thinking about where their lives are gonna go post-grad. I watched this for the first time when I myself was post-grad, and I think it just struck a nerve, but it's also absolutely hilarious. It is absolutely plagued by 90s editing styles, I will say that. That part, horrible. Everything else, perfect. Next, The Talented Mr. Ripley, which came out in 1999 and stars Matt Damon, Jude Law, Gwyneth Paltrow, Cate Blanchett, and Philip Seymour Hoffman. This is based on the novel by Patricia Highsmith and is about a young man named Tom Ripley who has always been an outsider looking in, and he meets Jude Law and Gwyneth Paltrow, who are young and beautiful and rich and living off the coast of Italy, and he decides that he would like to worm his way into that lifestyle. This movie has gorgeous vistas. It has Matt Damon singing My Funny Valentine, beautiful, beautiful costuming, and Matt Damon in what I think is the best performance he has ever given. Philip Seymour Hoffman is also a standout in this movie. You hate him, you hate his character, but he's flawless as per usual. If you haven't seen this movie and you don't happen to know anything about it, I would suggest and urge you to go into it blind. Don't look anything else up, just watch it. 2005's Elizabethtown is also a film by Cameron Crowe, who directed Almost Famous. Just like in Almost Famous, Elizabethtown has one of the best soundtracks that has ever existed. It stars a very, very wee Orlando Bloom, as well as Kirsten Dunst, Susan Sarandon, Alec Baldwin, Judy Greer, and is about a young man who has just lost his father and has to go back to the very small town that he grew up in Kentucky, and is about a young man who has just lost his father and has to go back to the small town that he grew up in Kentucky. It's about loving your family in spite of circumstances and learning about and things that are passed down through generations and learning to love the small things in life. And it is even about the manic pixie dream girl. And what I mean by that is that that phrase was actually coined by a film critic who was reviewing this film. Kirsten Dunst in Elizabethtown is the manic pixie dream girl. I think last but not least in this tier is Titanic. Do I even need to explain? It came out in 1997. It was directed by James Cameron. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Kate Winslet, Billy Zane, Kathy Bates. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio and Kate Winslet. This was my favorite movie starting at the age 3, somewhere in there. Truly. It was on the TV. I became obsessed with it. My parents were embarrassed for years because I told everyone my favorite movie was Titanic when I was 5 years old. I started believing that Leonardo DiCaprio was my boyfriend at age 3, and I still haven't given up on that idea. This movie has coursed through my veins for over 20 years now, and I truly think that it stands the test of time. And I got a big ol' review on Letterboxd if you would like to read more. My last tier is a little mix of everything. Some of these films are very well known, had big budgets, had huge theatrical runs, and others of them I'm entirely convinced I'm the only person in the world that knows that they exist. Like I've never like brought them up and someone been like, oh no, I know what you're talking about, I love that movie or whatever. Like that does not happen with some of these. But let's start off with the big ones. Atonement, 2007. This is my favorite of the Joe Wright and Keira Knightley period piece princess dramas. It also stars James McAvoy and a very young Saoirse Ronan, who quite honestly plays Satan. This is based on a novel by Ian McEwan. Atonement is from the perspective of young Saoirse, who is about 13 in this film. She's a great observer, and she starts taking in the lives of her older sister and her love interest, James McAvoy. And the linchpin of the film is this idea that as young children, children, we just can't fully understand everything. We can see everything and still not understand what's happening. Because of this, tragic drama ensues, and it is about the three of their lives moving forward 10, 15 years. It's a beautiful film and has some of the best costuming that has ever existed. Most people know of it because of the green dress. Keira Knightley in this film is the most beautiful that anyone has ever looked ever, and James McAvoy comes in a very close second. Another big film is 2017's Baby Driver. This was directed by Edgar Wright and stars Ansel Elgort, Kevin Spacey, Lily James, John Hamm, Jamie Foxx, John Bernthal, Isa Gonzalez, and has a funny reputation as just having a list of actors who disappointed their fans, and in some of their cases did horrible things. But the movie is perfect. It's an action film about Ansel Elgort's character, who was coerced at a young age to work for this overlooming crime boss and is the getaway driver for all of his robberies. The reason this movie is so unique is because the whole movie, everything about the movie is dependent on the music that is playing. So not only is the soundtrack amazing, but the soundtrack is the reason that the whole movie exists. For instance, the editor edited the movie to the music. The stunt driving was choreographed to the music that would be playing in the movie. The acting, especially the acting of Ansel Elgort, is dependent on what he is playing on his little iPod and his little earbuds behind his little glasses. You like the movie itself, I think it is an unbelievable feat in filmmaking, and would highly urge you to watch some of the interviews of behind the scenes with Edgar Wright talking about how they made this movie, because it seems absolutely unbelievable at times. So good. I'm so mad at Ansel Elgort and Kevin Spacey for ruining the idea of a sequel or a prequel or whatever. I would take anything. Moving our way a little bit smaller. The Big Sick, which came out in 2017. Again, a Zoe Kazan favorite. It also stars Kumail Nanjiani, who I will love, and I will root for him forever and always. And the movie is based on Kumail and his real life wife's Emily's love story. They wrote the script together and then they got Zoe to star in it with Kumail. And it's beautiful and it's sweet. It's about the clash of cultures between Kumail's Pakistani background and Emily's parents, who are these like just classic Midwest salt of the earth people, and it's beautiful and I love it. Time traveling back to 2001 for Riding in Cars with Boys, which was a dramedy about growing up starring Drew Barrymore, Brittany Murphy, Steve Zahn. This was one that we always had on VHS growing up, and I always knew it. I always knew what the story was and everything, but not until I rewatched it in high school and in college did I really understand the beauty behind the story. It's about Drew Barrymore's character who becomes pregnant early in life. I think she's 15 and she's struggling to make ends meet and to grow up and to chase her dreams and have a healthy relationship with the son's father and with her parents. And it is funny and heartwarming and truly catches these really young stars at the time at their absolute best. It will never fail to make me cry, and I love it. And it seems like a weird one to say it was a childhood favorite, but it is. About Alex came out in 2014, and this is a film that I have never heard anyone talking about out in the wild. It's basically The Big Chill, but set in the mid-2010s, and it stars Schmidt. Okay, it stars Max Greenfield, and that's all I need to tell you. Also though, Aubrey Plaza and Jason Ritter and a couple of other phenomenal indie actors, indie faves. It's about a group of college friends who are forced to come back together in their 30s after one of them tries to commit suicide and fails. It's about how those bonds change over time but also stay the exact same. And it's weird, but I feel like it's very real. And also Max Greenfield Schmidt is basically Ernest Hemingway for the whole thing, and that works for me. Next, Marrowbone, which came out in 2017. And are you ready for this amazing list of young cast? George McKay, Anya Taylor-Joy, Charlie Heaton, and Mia Goth. It still stuns me with that cast that this film is not more well known, because a lot of those people are like just internet favorites. It's about George McKay and his 3 younger siblings and how he is trying to look out for them after something very scary has happened to them that we as audience members aren't quite sure of in the first 2 acts. It's thriller and a horror film. There are jump scares, but also really well thought out plot twists and turns. And again, an amazing young cast. Highly recommend this one if you're into those genres. Also starring Anya Taylor-Joy and Olivia Cooke, who we spoke about earlier, is Thoroughbreds, which also came out in 2017. This is also Anton Yelchin's very last film. I miss him every day. And it's about 2 girls that are high school aged, one of them extremely rich and posh, and the other one who came from a seemingly normal family but has a history that she carries with her. And it's ultimately a character study between someone who struggles with sociopathy and psychopathy. I will watch anything that either of those 2 women are in, and Anton Yelchin is hilarious in this movie, which you don't usually expect from him, but I just love him so much. This was a weird one. It took me 2 watches to fully understand what was happening and to appreciate it to its fullest. So I'm not asking you to give it 1 watch, I'm asking you to give it 2 watches. And actually the same would go for Marrowbone. And then also we can appreciate the poster on this one, because it is hands down one of my top 5 probably, if not higher than that, favorite posters that has ever existed. The Family Stone is a family dramedy that came out in 2005, and again with the long list of amazing cast members: Dermot Mulroney, Sarah Jessica Parker, Diane Keaton, Luke Wilson, Claire Danes, Rachel McAdams, Craig T. Nelson, Elizabeth Reeser. I just watched this at my favorite rooftop cinema in LA, and it is just a beautiful film that comprises everything that you want from a movie. It's funny, it's sad, it pulls at your heartstrings, you'll cry at some point, you'll hate the characters, you'll love the characters, there's romance, and ultimately just the best family chemistry that has ever existed on screen. And my favorite part about this film is you can tell so much about the characters without ever explicitly being told information about these characters. There's so much to pick up on, and they don't just give family history away in dialogue, because that's not how a normal family talks. And it's one of my favorites. It's one of my family's favorites. And I love this movie so much. Someone Great is a film that just came out on Netflix in 2019. It stars Gina Rodriguez, Brittany Snow, DeWanda Wise, and Lakeith Stanfield. Lakeith is one of them that I will watch anything that he's in. And I am so happy that his small but extremely important part in this film led me to watching it. It's about Gina Rodriguez's character, Jenny, who has just gotten her dream job but has to move across the country, and causes her and her boyfriend of 9 years to break up. It only takes place over a day, and it is basically just welcoming the waves of emotion that would come from losing a relationship after 9 years. It's about girlhood and friendship and music and New York, and about accepting that maybe the person that you thought was the love of your life isn't, but that doesn't mean that they're not just as important. It's absolutely hilarious, and I think very real to how me and my friends act together. But if you need another reason to want to watch it, the writer-director Jennifer Caton Robinson wrote Someone Great after she heard Supercut by Lorde, and then inspired Taylor Swift to write Death by a Thousand Cuts, which I think is one of her top 5 best songs. It's beautiful and heartbreaking. My favorite things. Drinking Buddies came out in 2013, and it stars Olivia Wilde, Jake Johnson, Anna Kendrick, and Ron Livingston. This is a mumblecore film, which means that basically the entire thing was improvised. I think they gave them like plot points, but they didn't write a script. Don't quote me on that one. But it's just about 2 work best friends and them trying to figure out if their relationship is completely platonic or if there's something more there, and then their 2 partners. This is one of the most misleading posters of anything that has existed ever. It is not a romantic comedy, and Jake Johnson does not look like that. He looks scruffy, and that's the most important thing you need to know about this movie. Just a couple more. These are 4 that fall into the category of I don't know that anyone else has ever watched them besides me and the people that I've forced to watch them. One is called Song 1 that came out in 2014. This is an Anne Hathaway movie and also stars stars Johnny Flynn before he was really Johnny Flynn, and Mary Steenburgen, and so you would think that more people had seen this. But it has less than 4,000 ratings on Letterboxd. It's a beautiful story about Anne Hathaway's younger brother who is currently in a coma, and she's trying to wake him up basically by bringing his favorite food and playing his favorite music. And while she's playing his favorite music, she learns about his favorite musician that is played by Johnny Flynn, and she tracks him down. She's trying to retrace his steps. She ends up going to one of his concerts and meets him in person, and they start this kind of unexpected, sometimes romantic for sure, but also sometimes not relationship. This has one of my favorite original soundtracks of all time. Johnny Flynn's voice is just beautiful and gorgeous, and if you like folk music, I highly, highly encourage you to look this up.
You tried to kiss me by the dollar say. Instead I took your hand as we rode around the aisle, filling up our pockets with aspartame.
5 to 7 is another Anton film. This came out in 2014. Anton falls in love with an older woman from France who has an open marriage based on the guise of this French tradition of sorts, which is, I know the wrong word, but that says that they can have affairs between the time of 5 p.m. to 7 p.m. It's really just all about Anton's character sorting through the feelings that he has for this woman that can never truly be realized. And it's a really beautiful, poetic film that just feels like a Pinterest board. Copenhagen came out in 2014 and is about a young man who is trying to learn more about his family. He's going on this trip around Europe to try to find his grandfather and learn more about what happened. And he's just an ass. He's an absolute prick. And the movie just follows him really growing up and kind of learning that it's time to face the music with the help of his friend and a young lady that he meets in one of the countries. My favorite movies are the ones that balance you in the gray areas of life, that don't just focus on things that are clearly black and white, and this is 100% a film that does that for me. Last but not least, Liberal Arts came out in 2012, and it is written, directed, and stars Josh Radnor. It also stars a young Elizabeth Olsen, Richard Jenkins, Allison Janney. This is about a guy that goes back to visit one of his college professors and sees his campus. It really romanticizes what college was like for him and ends up starting an unlikely romantic relationship with one of the girls that goes to the school. While there's not anything legally wrong with the age gap, the movie follows Josh Radnor's character just as he tries to figure out what he wants in life. And it's extremely pretentious and pedantic, but I love both of those things in Josh Radnor's style so very much. He's clearly a romantic, and he writes in poetry in a way that people don't speak in real life. And so I'm sure some people don't like it because it's, you know, not very realistic or whatever, but it will always hold a special place in my heart. The first time I watched it was in the first month that I had started my own liberal arts education, and I was extremely lonely, and being a romantic myself, I just absolutely fell in love with this movie so quickly. And even though I've never really enjoyed any of Josh Radnor's other films, I feel a connection to him and the way that he thinks. So those are my favorite films, the 3 tiers of them, the short and the long list. Again, I would recommend any of them. Feel free to visit my Letterboxd if you want more information on any of them. I'll link my favorite list down below. And yeah, I'm probably gonna go watch Me and Earl and the Dying Girl now. Bye!